Well, howdy, folks. How's everybody doing? Everything's falling apart, huh? Everything's messed up and it feels like the whole world is ending, and I sure can't handle it. On top of the greatest public health crisis of my lifetime, capitalism is imploding. Turns out that if you base your entire economy on people purchasing commodities and you make it so that people's ability to purchase those commodities depends on them being able to collect wages, then if people can't collect wages for whatever reason, that's a big uh-oh. Turns out that's a big boo-boo. You did an economy bad. Right now, we're at a critical moment in history. Maybe you've heard the expression, socialism or barbarism, and my sweet little babies, we're about to find out which one people prefer. This is stressful. I want us to be up to the challenge of building a better world on the ashes of the old. And if we're gonna do that, we need to shed some of the stress we're building up right now. We need to blow off a little steam. So I got to thought sliming. What could I do to help my audience blow off some steam? What could I do that would make people who watch my videos the happiest? Oh, that's right, everybody. No big ideas this week. No complaining about TV shows I like. No meandering rants about some bullshit I saw on Twitter. We're getting down to business and dunking on right libertarians. Not because it's necessary or productive, but because, gosh darn it, it's going to make this whole situation a little bit more fun. Heads up, whenever I say the word libertarian in this video, understand that I mean that in the North American incorrect sense of the word. People who believe that we should have laissez-faire capitalism without a state and don't understand the inherent contradiction in that statement. I know that the word libertarian actually means a libertarian socialist, like me, in most parts of the world. But frankly, over here, these jabronis have gotten their stink all over the word so bad that I don't want it back. They can have it. They made it a stink word for ding-dongs. I got a special request for you, the viewer. Please do not go and harass these people. This isn't a coy way of me going like, wink, wink, don't harass him. I'm being serious. Okay? When I first started out on YouTube, I got harassed by some ANCAPs real bad. They followed me everywhere online. They threatened me, they slandered me, they showed up in my Discord with a bunch of fascists. And I'm not being colorful when I say that. These guys all had usernames like DuSVault or Blood and Soil and shit. I got death threats, like a lot. So I take this shit serious. I think that the people who make the videos I'm about to make fun of suck some serious donkey balls, but that does not give us the right to be toxic to them in kind. You'll be making me look bad if you do that, so just leave them alone and let them keep being weirdos. That being said, let's start off with a little group called Liberty Hangout. Maybe you recognize them as the guys who claim to be libertarians, but also openly support a return to feudalism. You know, like how every leftist has pointed out that's what would happen if you did libertarianism. Like that's how it would end up. And every libertarian's like, nah, that wouldn't happen, that's crazy. And this guy just straight up said, yeah, no, that'd happen, and I like it. That sounds good to me. Even among other right libertarians, these guys are a fucking joke. And they're a bad take factory. Just look at this one. Whose lives get saved? Because it sounds like what you're saying, dog, is that in an emergency, it's better for rich people to be able to get stuff all the time than for poor people to get it ever. Do you know how else you could stop hoarding without letting companies just jack up the prices as much as they see fit to keep poor people from buying the things that they need? Rationing. At my local Walmart, when toilet paper madness ran amok, they just limited each person to one package of toilet paper each. They didn't need to make the toilet paper cost $100. And if they did that, some rich jackoff could still buy it and sell it for $101, you incredible cretin. It should come as no surprise to anyone, therefore, that Liberty Hangout is the official home of Caitlin Bennett, the gun girl, whose accomplishments include, one time she brought a gun to a place where it would normally be unusual to have a gun, making people mad, and shitting herself one time. The site's founder, Justin Moldau, is also dating Caitlin. That's sure to go well. Good business decision. To quote his blurb on libertyhangout.org, born and raised a Catholic, Justin's politics are guided by his faith in Christ. Apropos of nothing, here are some direct quotes from Jesus Christ. Blessed are you who are poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. You lack one thing. Go, sell what you own, and give the money to the poor, and you will have treasure in heaven. Then come, follow me. Truly I tell you, it is hard for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven. Again I tell you, it is easier for a camel to pass through the eye of a needle than for a rich man to enter the kingdom of God. Seems like you did the opposite of the things he said there, Justin. Seems like you kind of based your worldview on something that Jesus held in contempt. Justin? Anywho, Liberty Hangout has a whole YouTube channel, and it's just video after video of Caitlin Bennett going somewhere, making a complete ass of herself, and getting criticized by like completely even-keeled, reasonable people. Like, for example, this one, where she dresses as an extremely offensive stereotype of an indigenous person.
I think that's offensive.
It's offensive?
Yeah, it's not your culture, so I don't think you should appropriate it.
What is this?
What's wrong, sir? Are you okay?
Correct.
They're not correct?
They aren't socially acceptable, in my opinion.
Says who?
Says the majority of the public.
Says Twitter? That's not the majority of the public.
What do they watch it? They aren't, because it's
there,
shock
people are gonna
value.
watch
You guys
it.
are doing performance art at this point.
Yeah. I mean, it's just a little bit off-putting because it's a
On top
lot.
of cultural appropriation,
Yeah.
races and culture shouldn't be costumes because that's stereotypes, that stigmatizes.
What is dressing up as a Native American to you? I'm Elizabeth Warren. You're Elizabeth Warren, the Democratic frontrunner for the candidacy. So your version of dressing up as a Native American is to put feathers in your hair, braid your hair, and wear that. Yes.
She chose to post this. She thought this video made her look good. And everyone reacts the same way. They just kind of go, hey, you shouldn't do that. What you're doing sucks. And then she starts asking leading questions like, oh, why is it cultural appropriation for me to wear this costume, but not for an indigenous person to eat spaghetti? And then they all just kind of roll their eyes and say, oh, I see now. You're being a shithead on purpose. Never mind. And this is all she does. I guess the idea is to expose liberal hypocrisy, right? Like, she dresses as a Native American and it makes people mad, but they're not mad about Elizabeth Warren pretending to be Native American to get into college and get scholarships. Which, I think if you asked people if that made them mad, they'd say, yeah, definitely it does.
I have to ask you a question. Is it wild for Elizabeth Warren to lie about being Native American to get into college? Yeah, that's wrong too. What's worse, lying about being Native American to get into college or dressing up as one in a stereotypical outfit?
They're both bad.
And B, it also didn't happen. Warren did falsely claim to be Native American, Cherokee specifically, but she claims she believed it at the time. She did this little publicity stunt, you might remember, where she had her DNA tested, which I don't think she would have done if she didn't really believe it because it blew the fuck up in her face. There's plenty to criticize about that. Elizabeth Warren definitely fucked up in a big-time racist way, several times. She definitely claimed ownership over a culture that she had no part in, and the whole idea of a blood test it rests on some pretty racist logic, but there's no evidence to suggest that she used that to get into college. She also didn't, admit that she did that either, like you claim here. Because, if she had, I wouldn't have said that there's no evidence that she used her fake heritage to get into college, because her saying that would have been evidence that she used her fake heritage to get into college, but she didn't. What happened there was you were lying.
Is it offensive to lie about being a Native American to get into college?
She got into college, she got a scholarship, she got all kinds of stuff.
Well, what's the evidence that she lied? Because
She said she did.
She has this dude with her who's dressed like a white person. Take that, liberal hypocrites. You're offended by blackface? Why not whiteface? Busted. But I don't think it's just liberals that find blackface offensive. In fact, here in Canada, the head of our Liberal Party dresses in blackface all the time, and conservative politicians seem to find it quite offensive in that one particular instance. But why? Why is blackface offensive when whiteface is not? Is there some sort of centuries-old cultural context? Have people been using blackface specifically to demean black people and justify the horrific institutionalized violence against them for literal centuries? Maybe it's also just kind of fucked up in general for people who have all of the power in society to mock people who don't, in a way that it isn't fucked up for people with relatively less power to mock those who do. Boy, I wish somebody would point that out to them. Oh wait, someone did. Let's see how they react.
It'd be way different if it was a white person doing blackface.
It would be different? Why would it be different?
Because it's more offensive. I have the white privilege to not go through what other racial groups go through.
Oh cool, it's just a face. You just made a face? No rebuttal. Seems like that person made a pretty convincing argument. Are you sure you don't want to say anything? No? Just a face? Okay. Cool. Caitlin is performing the oldest shtick in the book. This is something every conservative talking head ought to be good at. It's real easy. You go somewhere a bunch of libs are, you piss them off, then you selectively edit the footage to make yourself seem reasonable and composed, and make them seem like raving loons screaming at you for no reason. Now she can do the first two parts, she's really good at that. But the problem comes when she leaves in the video people explaining, with great patience, why she's being a shithead. And also, all of the amazing sick burns they drop on her, or the pranks they pull on her.
You what?
Yeah, actually, I just want to have an actual productive conversation.
White privilege, high five right here. Warren, running for president. What do you think?
Wait, can I see it?
Don't touch it. Don't touch it.
Wait, am I allowed to touch
Don't
it?
touch it.
Wait, why can't I touch it?
Because it's not your property.
Oh, ow. Oh, he's hurting me. Oh, no. Hey, why? Wait, why?
Because you're committing theft.
I think you're just trying to cling to relevance.
Are you really?
No.
Oh.
What'd she say?
She goes, I'm a huge fan, but she lied to me.
At this point, Caitlyn can't escape her reputation for having shit herself once. So everywhere she goes, someone points out that she shit herself, and she leaves it in the video.
I've pooped my pants 0 times since... How old was I? Maybe 2?
Caitlyn, why are you reminding people of that? I know it's the whole thing where you go, huh, you think I'm mad? I'm actually laughing. But you know you can just edit stuff out of videos, right? Look, watch, I'm going to say the password to my YouTube channel and I'm going to edit it out. See? It's easy. You cut. You press the C button. In Premiere Pro, you press the C button, you click on both sides of the thing you want to cut out, and then you delete it. That's all you got to do. I cannot emphasize enough how she does not make a single argument for her position in this whole video. She just asks leading question after leading question. She never makes a declarative statement. It's always just a question, and usually a question she already knew the answer to. She asked one person, why is what I'm wearing offensive? Well, obviously you fucking knew it was offensive, Caitlyn, because the person responds, culture is not a costume, and you say, well, I've been waiting all day for someone to say that, so you think she's got some clever rhetorical trap set up, right? She's really gonna nail this lib to the wall. She's been waiting all day for someone to say those magic words, and now we're gonna hear her get them.
I'm sorry.
Culture is not a costume.
There it is. I was waiting for that phrase today. There it is. We got it. You won the prize of being offended. I guess there is no prize.
Wow. Funny stuff. The thing about Caitlyn is that she knows how to make people mad. A toddler knows how to make people mad. Now sure, you can make comedy by making people mad, but one of the things you've got to do is make a joke. Like, the guy she's with isn't funny, but to his credit, he is making jokes and can usually at least offer a comeback when someone insults him, even if the comebacks are pretty flaccid. But Caitlyn is not witty. She's not charismatic. Aside from her ridiculous political views, she has zero personality. If the media hadn't paid attention to the one interesting thing she did in her life, she'd be putting word-up art at her walls in her suburban McMansion in the most boring part of Ohio. She is not good at what she does, and what she does is the easiest thing in the fucking world to do. Steven Crowder, the world's least talented man, can do what she does. Already, I have paid too much attention to Caitlyn Bennett, and I can feel my life energy leaving my body. And I require my life energy because it nourishes the eyeball legions. And as I grow weaker, they grow stronger, until one day I am reduced to nothingness, a memory of a human being that lingers in the minds of those who do not yet know that their fates are sealed to be likewise consumed by Lord Oculon's dark host. Hello and welcome to the Eyeball Zone. Here in the Eyeball Zone, we offer small leftist projects as tribute to the eyeballs. Here's a little treat for your earballs. Much punk music has been written to discuss how all cops are bastards. But you know what is less common, I assume, as someone who knows nothing about punk music? People calling out the RCMP specifically. The Gilded Kants, though, their song, RCMP ACAB, sums up my feelings pretty succinctly.
Every fucking Proud Boy bringing guns to the rally. Gavin McInnes is striking yet another tally. The cops will just stand there not making arrests, despite the fucking fact that they are wearing Nazi vests. Peterson boys are picked and groomed, paying money to be told to clean their fucking rooms.
You can listen to that and more of their music on their YouTube channel. and you can buy it over at gildedkants.bandcamp.com. I can't think of a better explanation for why we need to support leftist punk musicians than the existence of the bootlicking clowns we're discussing here today. So give them a listen. Do you have a small leftist project you'd like to abandon to the inscrutable whims of the eyeball zone? Send no more than one email to thoughtslimeeditor@gmail.com with the word eyeball somewhere in the subject line, and pertinent details like your pronouns. And maybe you will find yourself trapped here, in the eyeball zone. If you are particularly sensitive to boomerism, look away now. You don't want to see the man I am about to discuss, the boomer. I present to you the Canadian Libertarian.
Hey everyone, I believe I'm going to call this video The Problem with Collective Ownership.
Look at this. Look at this madness. I know exactly what happened here. He bought some sort of expensive flashy bit of stock footage with the CGI light and then threw in the logo he designed himself in MS Paint over the top and just, wow. Okay, so first of all, look at all the text. Look at all the different fonts. How the fuck are you going to read that in the few seconds it's on screen? Especially when it's so small and in some cases has no contrast with the background. And like, why is the Canadian flag the symbol of the Canadian state? What the fuck, dude? That's the one thing you don't like. That's the one thing you had to avoid putting in there. Use some sort of capitalist symbol of Canada, dude, like a Kraft Dinner or a Tim Hortons or something. Now normally, this would be a little beneath me. This is just somebody's dad running a YouTube series as a hobby. It'd be pretty rude of me to pick on someone with so much of a smaller platform. This guy, though. This guy friggin' deserves it. Because he's a real piece of work. He has a real bug up his butt about the blockades that Indigenous people have put up across Canada in protest of the seizure of Wet'suwet'en land. There's a video in the corner popping up now that explains that. Click on that if you don't know what I'm talking about. It's much more important than this. Listen to this knucklehead.
Can we now please end this great Canadian delusion entertained over the past few weeks that the blockades leading to Monday's police takedowns and Teck Resources oil sands decision are part of a momentous clash over Indigenous rights and climate change? They are not. The blockades themselves are an ideological construct designed to help the radical left, socialists, and agglomerations of anti-capitalists to impose a new economic model on Canada and the rest of the world. And that's that Green New Deal that you keep hearing about.
Yeah, that's what it is, dog. That's probably it. Probably the real reason isn't the thing that they're saying. It's what they want actually is they want to do a worldwide globalist authoritarian government, which you can tell obviously because of the evidence of that. This chaps my buns real bad because you'd think if anyone on the right could get behind a group of protesters defending their land from state seizure, it should be right libertarians. And while I understand that his principles would make him opposed to the blockades for the same dogshit reasons that feckless libs are, the actual people on their land fighting to keep the government off their backs, that ought to be the type of thing that someone who claims to believe what he does should be all about. I mean, I know better than to expect better, but it's still infuriating.
Which is why property rights, private property rights, is so important. If this property, if this land was actually held by property owners, well, those property owners wouldn't be at the mercy of the protesters or those who disagree with their decision. Not to mention the fact that property owners would also be held responsible and liable for anything that happened as a direct result.
He thinks that what we should do, you see, isn't let the people decide. No, that's collectivism. That's mob rule. That's democracy, which is bad.
And no, just like I would say to those who are promoters of monarchies or democracies, I don't recognize the legitimacy of the Queen or the Prime Minister laying claim to the entire country of Canada.
What we should do is let each individual Wet'suwet'en person decide what they're allowed to do with their own property, which is only theirs, of course, if they're productive on it.
If you're productive on it, or you have actual land, deed, or title, and you can prove one or the other, and it's within reason.
How is that decided? Unclear. How precisely are one's property rights to be defended in the absence of the state? Unclear. One thing that is very clear though, that wouldn't solve the fucking problem. If you're against democracy on the basis that mob rule removes your individual rights and forces you to acquiesce to the will of the majority, I would say that one way to not fix that problem would be to give each individual person the ability to override everyone else's choice by allowing the pipeline through their specific portion of the land that you, CL, have decided that they own. Even if you could just parcel out each individual bit of land to individual people, it sure isn't that way now, is it? It currently belongs to everybody as a whole, so the people as a whole should get to say what to do with it, unless, of course, you'd like to take away their property rights because their version of ownership doesn't suit you. Sounds pretty authoritarian to me, but what do I know? My beliefs are internally consistent. But even if you did that, you'd still have to hold some sort of arbitration period before each person could decide what little bit they own. And like, dog? If I own 1 square kilometer of land and my neighbor owns the next square kilometer of land, if he builds a pipeline through his land, that's going to affect me. Sure, you say, he's liable if something goes wrong. Liable to whom, in the absence of the state and any sort of collectivist body, I have no idea. But what if it explodes, killing us both? What if I know it's going to explode, but he wants to build it anyway? Why not? It's his property, right? The idea that each person gets total control over their little bit of land and nobody else gets to say shit, no matter how much it affects them, renders everyone's property rights basically moot. A pipeline is going to cause runoff. It's going to leak. And it's going to create problems for places outside of the immediate land it happens to be built on. So even in the fantasy world you've concocted, where each person gets their own little fiefdom, provided they're being productive with their land, of course, it would still create problems for other people's personal little fiefdoms. And furthermore, the idea that land de facto belongs to whosoever uses it productively, in your judgment, was the exact historical justification for the seizure of indigenous land and incumbent genocide by the state in the first place. Your allegedly anti-statist perspective just so happens to provide intellectual cover for the greatest crime our state has ever committed. Way to go, you complete nincompoop! Whew! He's also pretty pro-life, which seems to me like it would conflict with his libertarian principles.
Which is, what is abortion? It's the killing of the unborn. And I know lots of people argue on many different areas, and there is nuance to this conversation, no doubt about it. Matter of fact, I'd love for us to get that point someday. Hopefully we will. But right now, yeah, it's just divided between pro-life or pro-choice. And the way this is being represented as far as the article is those who are pro-life, you're bad, you're evil. How dare you stand in defense of the unborn? Whereas those who are pro-abortion, or killers of the unborn, or promoters of killing of the unborn, we're supposed to praise and applaud those folks.
You're telling me that a woman who's pregnant has to give up her property right to own her own body just because some fetus says so? Not my problem, pal. Why don't you get a job? When I was in the womb, I got my own nourishment. Nobody gave me nothing. Seems to me like you're kind of applying your principles arbitrarily and twisting them to defend your socially conservative values. To wit, he's also against what he calls mass immigration, not because he's a xenophobe, but because of some other reason.
This push for mass immigration, in addition to being detrimental for the housing market, jobs and wages in this country, in particular for the Canadians who already live here. That's right, Canada. Wages in this country have been stagnant for 4+ decades now, thanks in part to this massive push for globalization, and is only going to get much, much worse now that mass immigration has been brought into the equation and ramped up under the federal Liberals.
So just so we're all keeping score, what we shouldn't have is a state, but also we should have strong borders around for our not state. The border will keep people from other not states from entering our not state, and we'll guard it with our not military. But he's not saying that for any sort of racist reason. He's not saying something in direct contradiction to everything he claims to believe for any sort of racism.
In conjunction with mass immigration, aka the Great Replacement, along with big government, crony corporations, and the ability to completely manipulate and devalue our currency, I guess all those in combined will work out, at least they hope, to keep the gravy train rolling or hum along for the foreseeable future. Or as long as the baby boomers are around.
It's only partially because the globalists want to destroy the West by getting rid of white people. The real reason is because government officials get a lot of money by getting new immigrants to fill out forms.
So there you have it. It's right there in black and white. The main driver for economic growth in this country is coming as a consequence of the rampant growth in big government, bureaucracy, public sector institutions, and pencil pushers who all make big bucks under this mass immigration program. And we sure as heck can't forget about all those corporations.
And also because condo owners can charge them a lot of money, which naturally a capitalist should oppose.
If you're a boomer that's sitting on one of these proverbial gold mines, aka a house or condo, this is great. Bidding wars, smaller supply, increased demand, that's all beneficial. It's all gravy.
In classic Canadian style, the Canadian Libertarian follows the Don Cherry style of rhetoric, where it doesn't matter if what you say is untrue or doesn't make sense or it's racist. What matters is how loud you can speak.
Yeah. You'd be a little leery of hiring him a second time? Yeah, well, the thing... he is in a case... wasn't racism, no, it was because... it is. No, it isn't. It was the uprising will cause. It was between him and the GM. That's why he didn't get it. It wasn't racism at all. And let's never get into that again. I've lost the whole thing.
Mind you, he certainly dresses better than Don Cherry. Look at his well-ironed shirts. I couldn't iron my shirts that well. That's nice. He puts on his nicest shirts and his ties, and he sits down to yell at the internet about globalism. But he doesn't really believe the things he says. Not really. Deep down, it doesn't matter to him whether or not he's speaking truth to power. It doesn't matter whether his actions line up with his values. It doesn't matter whether his ideology is internally consistent, like all right libertarians. Everything he purports to believe is all just an excuse to justify his extant prejudices. People are poor because they don't work hard enough. Women don't get to control their bodies, but businesses are allowed to poison bodies if they want. You have the right to protest, but if you don't protest for reasons that I like, that must mean that you're being funded by George Soros. And therefore, your defiance of the state is actually globalist intrusion and therefore statist somehow. Oh, that felt amazing, didn't it? Just blowing off a little steam at the cheerleaders of the systems currently fucking us all over slightly harder than they were a week ago. I hope you enjoyed funning around with me this week. And remember, no matter how bad things get, at least you're not putting videos on the internet where people are mocking you to your face about the time you shit yourself at a party. Hey everybody, thanks for watching my video. If you liked it, please wash your hands consistently for 20 seconds at a time. It's a good idea to also isolate yourself from the elderly and immunocompromised and just try and, keep yourself self-quarantined a little bit, stop the spread of the virus. That would be a good idea. I also have a Patreon at patreon.com/thoughtslime that if you need to cancel your subscription to or walk back a little, I get it, and you don't owe me anything, least of all an explanation, because I know that times are hard. If you're bored, you can check out youtube.com/Scaredy Cats TV, where I talk about horror movies. And also you can watch me stream at twitch.tv/thoughtslime every 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I hope you're all taking care of yourselves and one another in this difficult time.